Hello, I'm Dr. Bossing. This is another video for English 111. I just want to take a couple minutes to talk about paper 1 and to preview paper 2, the assignment you're going to be starting this week for our class. About paper 1, I've got about 3 papers done. I'm working on the other 2, so by the end of this week I should have all the grades done. And I know that's kind of frustrating because you worked hard on the paper. You want feedback as soon as you possibly can. Some of you have it. Some of you are still waiting for it. And I want to have this to kind of be a one-on-one interaction because you wrote the paper, I'm grading the paper, right? So there's that communication. But there's also 99 other students, right? And I'm not a grading robot, can't run the paper through a scanner and get any kind of useful feedback. So I'm going as fast as I can, but it's my responsibility to give you useful feedback, and that just takes time. I got good news and bad news about paper 1. I'll go through this really quickly. The bad news is, as a group, overall, this set of paper number 1, it's not as good as I was hoping. I had really high hopes. There's not enough A's and there's too many D's and F papers. And I know that's going to be frustrating. But again, like I said before, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to tell you that a paper is up to college standards if it's not. So that's kind of the not great news. If you did great, awesome. If the paper didn't do as well as you were hoping, not awesome. Go ahead and curse me for not knowing a good paper when I see it. I get it. But then I hope you do something beyond just that initial reaction. The good news is this is only worth 10% of the semester grade. So nobody's paper either made or broke their semester, right, with just this one paper. The other good news is you're getting a lot of feedback back from me. I know you're getting 4 levels of feedback. You only really care about the first one, which is the grade, and I get that. You want to get passing grades so you can get out of this class and never have to take it again. I appreciate that. I'm more interested in the other 3 levels. When you go on Blackboard to see your grades, if you look at my feedback, you'll see a little miniature rubric, right, of the 7 things that I'm grading in each paper, along with a number next to that. And that corresponds to the larger rubric that's in the paper 1 assignment folder, the grading rubric. If you open that up, and you can see what that score for an introduction or for MLA documentation, what that means on the larger rubric. But all of those 7 numbers add up to the score for the paper. So that can be useful. The other thing is the summary comments that are below that little miniature rubric. And that's what's taken me a long time, right? If I just had to read your paper and toss out a grade, okay. But I want to give you feedback, so you'll get summary responses about what I think works really well and what can be improved on for your paper. And the final thing is if I could access your paper on Blackboard, if I didn't have to download it or go to a link or something, you'll probably have marginal comments that I made along one side of the paper that's in Blackboard. And it'll be just things that I had questions about or was not clear about, or if there's a pattern of errors like comma splices or sentence fragments, at least for the first couple pages, I'll actually mark them for you so you can see the pattern. So I hope you'll go beyond just the score and look below at the other kinds of feedback that the paper gets. And remember this, I'm not judging you as a person because I don't know you, and I'm not judging you as a writer because I don't know if you worked your butt off every day for 2 weeks to put this paper together, or you spent an hour before the deadline was due, right? All I can do is is evaluate the product that was turned in, right? And the idea is that if you buy into the writing process, that each paper can get improved on, then I hope that's what happens, right? That I hope that the feedback you get on paper 1 you can apply during the writing process of paper number 2. That's my hope. Anyway, curse me, bless me, whatever you need to do, as long as you're moving forward into paper number 2. Let's talk about paper number 2. Things are going to get weird here. Let's see. I'm going to turn that off and bring this up, and I hope that works. Okay, I'm looking at the paper 2 assignment, where basically I'm asking you to do this, to become a reviewer, where you're going to review 2 similar things, right? 2 restaurants, 2 movies, 2 video games, 2 novels, and you're going to say, this one's great, this one's not great, and let me explain why, and let me persuade you, the reader, of my opinion. Right? If you think we're surrounded by reviews, if you go out to eat, you might go to Google reviews or Yelp and find out the best Japanese restaurant in town, right? And where to avoid eating, right? The same with movies. If you're going to go stream a movie or go out to see a movie, you probably might check, I don't know, Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes and find out what the scores are. The same with books, right? You might go to Goodreads. So we're surrounded by this kind of writing all the time, these reviews, these comparisons between 2 things. And that's what I want you to do in a kind of focused, organized, more formal way. And it can be any of these. I gave you some examples of things you could write about that have worked really well in the past. Restaurants are easy, really fun to write about. Same with movies, or television or streaming shows, or video games, or books, or albums, any kind of product that you can experience. That's good for this, right? Because you can come up with concrete, specific, detailed reasons to back up your opinion. Please remember this. Your review, any review, is a statement of opinion, right? You're giving your opinion. Now, you don't want to say, I think, I believe, I feel, right? In this paper, you're staying away from first person, and you're staying away from second person pronouns, right? So no, I feel this, and no, you should do this, right? From now on, we're going to be writing in third person, but you can still state your opinion. Now, if you have no interest, right? If you don't watch TV, if you don't go out to eat, if you don't listen to music or play video games or read books, then I'm going to say, all right, you don't have any interest in that, then I'm asking you to pick 2 essays from the English 111 reader and compare them. That one was successful and one was less successful, and the reasons why. Okay? Here's the other thing to think about before you lock in on a topic for this paper. It's this. Make sure that you're picking a topic that's appropriate for an academic essay. In other words, I don't want to read about your favorite brand of cannabis, right? And your least favorite. I don't want to read about it. And I want you to pick a topic that when you get paper 2 back and it's an A paper, you can give it to your mom and she's going to give you a glowing review of this amazing paper. And she doesn't want to read about your cannabis. So make it PG appropriate for college and for your mama. Also, this is even more important. Pick something you have knowledge of and interest in, right? Because you're going to have to explain your criteria. You have to know enough about this to explain why one is successful and one's not. So pick wisely. So you have that criteria. And number 4, the things to avoid. And after a couple years of using this assignment, these are the topics that just don't work. And I don't want to read any more of these. So avoid these topics, even though I know this is going to annoy some of you. Don't write about electronic devices. I don't want to read another paper about the iPhone X being better than the iPhone whatever, or the Android whatever. What I end up with is a bunch of copy and pasted information from review sites and a bunch of specs from manuals, and it's just not good writing, and I don't want to read about it. Same thing with automobiles. I'm sorry, but if you start writing about why the Ford F-150 is better than the Chevy whatever, it's no good. It's just not interesting or engaging writing. And this next topic hurts me because I love sports and I love reading about sports, but please, no comparisons between sports teams. Because what I end up getting is a ton of Duke men's basketball compared to East Carolina University's men's basketball. One is better and one's not. And that's just not interesting to read, right? Like, duh, Duke's team is better than ECU's team in the last 30 years. And there's no one that can disagree with that. You want to pick two things that your reader might have to be convinced one way or the other. And, just saying that the Yankees are better than the Mets, that's not, there's no reader is going to be able to argue that the Mets are a better Major League Baseball franchise than the Yankees. So you just want to avoid any comparison where the reader is going to be able to go, so what? Like, duh, that's obvious. You don't want to state the obvious. The last one to avoid are just simply places, right? I don't want to read a paper where you grew up in Brooklyn and it's an amazing, vibrant, exciting city, and then your folks drug you to Raleigh and it's boring and horrible. That's for paper number 1, the personal experience essay, the personal narrative. I don't want to read about that. Because places in and of themselves have to do with your experience of that place. And that's too personal, right? For that to be relevant to another reader. Now, you could write about places as like vacation destinations, because that's different. There is a criteria for what makes for an exciting vacation spot, right? You can write about Disney World in Florida versus a trip to Universal Studios, and how one's an amazing experience and the other one's a disappointing experience, or whatever. So in that way, you could write about specific places, but not just generically, this city's better than this city and here's why. So those are the things to avoid. The other important stuff to highlight is this. You want to have this thing in MLA format. Please review MLA formatting guidelines before you turn in your next paper. The other thing is the length. It needs to be a minimum of 4 typed double-spaced pages. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You're writing 2 reviews. You could write a 2-page positive review and a 2-page negative review, and you got your 4 pages. There also needs to be a minimum of 2 sources. Because if you think about it, you're writing about 2 things. If you're writing about 2 books, you have to have those 2 things that you're referring to as your sources. If you're writing about 2 restaurants, you'll probably want to use their websites that will have menus and pricing and probably nice photos of the interior eating space. You'd want that. You can also use other sources, right? You can back up your own review with other people's reviews. As long as you're acknowledging that it's other people's opinions. But if you think about it, yeah, you might want to go to Rotten Tomatoes and look at the scores that professional reviewers gave it, and also that just regular viewers of a particular movie or television show gave that thing as support for your own review. Please note that the paper's graded proportionally. You want to meet the minimum requirements, both in terms of length and the number of sources. or you'll lose points before I even read the first page, right? So you want to be able to have 100% of the points available to you. The other thing to note is the due dates, because basically this is the next 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks of our class, broken down into the due dates for this paper. Again, part of the writing process is to build week by week, break the paper down into smaller, easier to handle parts, and then the last week you're putting all the parts together. So this week 7 of our semester, I'm asking you to do the pre-writing worksheet, a kind of brainstorming exercise, and also another free writing activity where you're writing everything you can think of about the topic that will be the subject matter for your positive review. And there'll be a lot more details about that in the week 7 folder as you scroll down and work your way through. So that's it. I hope you buy into the writing process over these next weeks, that you come up with a plan, that you get feedback either from the ILC or from the Real Center or from me during my office hours. Let's make this paper number 2 the best thing you've ever written for an English class. That's all I've got. Work hard, be kind. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.